I'm going to identify 4 misbeliefs that you need to change so you can detach from the false guilt that you are feeling. So, first of all, what is false guilt? False means not true, and guilt means you feel like you've done something wrong, you've done something bad, you're responsible for doing something that's not good, and false means that that's not true. So, in other words, you're feeling guilty, but you're not guilty. You didn't do anything wrong, but you're feeling like you did something wrong. So, first of all, you have to recognize that something called false guilt does exist. You can feel guilty, but not be guilty. Even as a Christian, you can feel guilty, but not be guilty. And then you need to figure out, one, that you're feeling false guilt. And then 2, you have to be able to detach from that false guilt. In other words, say, I feel it, but I'm not going to take it seriously. I'm not going to take it on. And that is a process that takes some time, but eventually you get to where the false guilt doesn't even come up at all. But first, you've got to be able to identify it as false guilt and detach from it before you can get to the point where you stop feeling false guilt. So false guilt is based on a number of misbeliefs, but I'm going to give you 4 of the main ones that hit us in our relationships. And the first one is that you are responsible for someone's happiness or unhappiness. Like, are you responsible for somebody who says to you, I'm not happy, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm lonely, I don't have any money, I never get to go on vacation like you do, I don't have a good job like you do, I don't, things just don't work right for me. Like, I've had a bad life, I've had a hard life, like things aren't going well for me, like I'm sick. And are you responsible for that person's happiness or unhappiness or their situation? You're not. Each of us is responsible for ourselves. Each of us is responsible to take care of our own responsibilities and make the choices that we need to make in taking care of ourselves. That's very clear. It's only when somebody has things that are beyond their ability to cope and you're the right person to help them that you might need to consider helping them. But that's only after they've done what they need to do, only after they've taken care of their stuff. In Galatians, it talks about helping bear each other's burdens, but each of us is responsible for our own load. In Galatians 6, I believe it's 2 and possibly 3. And basically, it's saying the load is your knapsack. It's the stuff you're supposed to carry for yourself. It's your responsibility, your life, your choices, your self-care, your getting food on the table for your family, you getting a job, you being the one that is to take care of your stuff. Burdens is a load that's like in a crisis. It's like you've done everything you can, person's done everything they can, but their house burned down. Would you give them lodging for the night? Would you give them a sack of clothes? Absolutely. But you're not responsible for bringing that to them when they're doing nothing to take care of themselves. So you're not responsible for somebody else's happiness. Happiness is an inside job. People have to take care of themselves and figure out how to be happy themselves. Somebody complains, it doesn't mean it's your fault that the person is in that situation. People have choices. Secondly, the second misbelief is that you are responsible for the person's distress and discomfort when their choices lead to consequences. It's like a person doesn't work and they get kicked out of their apartment. And are you responsible for paying or going to get kicked out of their apartment? Are you responsible to pay their rent because they haven't done the work that they need to do to either manage their own money, or maybe they've got an apartment that's way too expensive, or maybe they lost a job, but they're not even caring about looking for another job. They're just calling you and saying, can you pay this for me? So basically, you don't automatically have to feel guilty because somebody is experiencing consequences. People need to experience consequences. In Galatians 6, 7, and 8, it talks about if you sow to the good, you reap good. If you sow to the bad, you reap bad. We make good efforts to do what is right, and things go a lot better than when you're not making the effort to do what is right. So, things are logical. There's a proverb that talks about if you see a saggy roof, it's probably because the person hasn't been taking care of their roof. They haven't taken care of the house. So things happen. So you've got to recognize just because somebody's experiencing consequences doesn't mean you have to bail them out. It might be a good time to not bail them out, because that might be the time that they actually can learn that they need to make different choices, because the consequences are painful. So with choice comes consequence. With consequence comes learning, you hope. But if you bail the person out of the consequences, then they don't have to experience it, guaranteed. No learning, back to making the same choices over and over again. So just because somebody has consequences doesn't mean that you have done something wrong, or that you have to feel responsible to fix those consequences. The third one is that you are responsible for the person's feelings when you set a boundary. Do people like you setting boundaries and saying no and telling them you won't help them, or you won't bail them out, or you aren't the one that's going to drop everything and come running over there and fix their consequences, or let them move in with you because they haven't been taking care of things? Do they like that? No, they hate it. They want you to give in. They want you to feel false guilt. In fact, they're going to milk it. They're basically going to tell you, oh man, you're not a good mom. You're not a good dad. You're a horrible sister. You don't care about me. You never cared about me. You always had a better life than me. Mom and dad always favored you. Things always went well for you. They never went well for me. I always get the short end of the stick. You know that. Oh man, they're going to tell you every single thing that they know gets you to feel false guilt. They're going to tell you how mean you are and how unfair you are, and how they're going to threaten you. Oh my gosh, I may not make it through this, and I'm going to have to be on the street, and I might have all these bad things happen to me, and if I do, it's going to be your fault. Be prepared. So recognizing that when you set a boundary, it is about taking care of you, not taking care of the other person. You cannot take care of you and take care of the other person's feelings at the same time. Impossible. It's either you or that person. If you take care of that person's feelings, you've got to give in to what the person wants. You've got to say, hey, that's it. This is mine. Okay, I'm going to do what you want because I can't let you feel bad. It's my fault you're feeling bad. I've got to give in. Or you've got to say, nope, this is what's right for me. I'm going to do the right thing, not giving in. So it's either or. So when you recognize that when you set a boundary, it is false guilt for you to feel bad about the person's feelings. False guilt, not true guilt, false guilt. Okay. And the very last one is that you are selfish when you put yourself first. So that's the ultimate guilt inducer. Oh, you're selfish. You're not a Christian. You're not submitting. You're not loving. You're not supporting. You're not treating me like Christ loves the church. You're not taking care of me. You're not, on and on and on, and you've got to esteem others above yourself. You can't say that that's necessarily in the Bible, because guess what? Ephesians 5:28 and 29. Apostle Paul basically said, hey, I got to figure out how to tell these men how to take care of themselves. So he's like, I know, I'll just give him an example. Hey guys, you got to just take care of your wives like you take care of your own body, because no one neglects their own body. But they love it and they cherish it, just like Christ does the church. So you cannot tell me that it is wrong to take care of yourself, that it is wrong to do self-care, that it is wrong to say, I can't do that, it wouldn't be good for me, or I don't feel that that is the right thing. You have a right to do that. Essential self-care. You can say, no, this is not mine to carry. This is yours to carry and not have to always put someone else first, because you're on a plane and you've got the oxygen mask fall down and you've got a little kid or a disabled person, elderly person sitting next to you. Who do you put the oxygen mask on first? Yourself. Then you put it on the person sitting next to you, because if you're not there to help that person, no one gets an oxygen mask. So again, these are the 4 misbeliefs that you have to let go of in order for you to not have false guilt in your relationships. Number 1, you are not responsible for the other person's happiness or unhappiness. So the false guilt, the misbelief is that you are responsible for that. You are not. You are not responsible for the person's consequences that happen from their choices. You are not responsible for the other person's feelings when you set a boundary, and you are not responsible and required to put the other person first. It is not selfish when you do self-care. Those are the truths. The misbeliefs are the things that lead to you having false guilt. Now, eventually, when you identify the false guilt, because you know the truths about those things, you will feel less false guilt. So, okay, thank you for watching this video on Change My Relationship.